Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're going on an epic north-to-south journey to explore the literal veins and arteries of India. We aren't just looking at water flowing on a map, we're decoding the geographical wonders and ancient lifelines that dictate the survival of over 1 billion people. It's really worth asking up front, what exactly sustains 80% of India's population? What forms the bedrock of ancient civilizations and modern infrastructure alike? The answer, naturally, is its rivers. But as we're going to see, the capacity and quality of these vital engines are shifting really fast, which makes them the absolute most critical foundation of life across this entire landscape. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Here is our roadmap. 1. India's 2 river systems. 2. The Indus River System. 3. The mighty Ganga Basin. 4. Brahmaputra, the eastern giant. 5. West-flowing peninsular rivers. And 6. East-flowing peninsular rivers. Section 1. India's 2 river systems. So the crucial thing to understand here is that a river is never just a single lonely line of water. It's a whole network. Think of it like a giant tree. You have the main river acting as the trunk, drawing water from a huge geographical area. The smaller rivers feeding into it are the branches, or tributaries. And when the river gets close to the sea and splits apart, those are its distributaries. Put it all together, and you get what we call a drainage basin. This brings us to a massive, really fascinating contrast in scale and behavior. On one hand, you have the Himalayan rivers up north, the Indus, Ganga, and Brahmaputra. They're perennial. They flow year-round because they get a double dose of water from monsoon rains and melting glaciers. They're incredibly fast and carve out these violent, deep gorges. But down south, we have the peninsular rivers. Geologically speaking, they are way older. And because they rely almost entirely on the monsoon, they're seasonal, flowing much slower and wider across the flatter plateau. Section 2. The Indus River System. To give you a real sense of the scale we're dealing with, think about 99 billion cubic meters. That massive number represents the volume of water carried by just the Indus, Jhelum, and Chenab rivers. That is a staggering 80% of the entire system's capacity. It's just an incomprehensible amount of water, violently cascading down from the Tibetan Plateau, tearing through the Himalayas, and washing into the plains.
So looking at the Panch Nadi, the famous 5 rivers of Punjab, it's wild to think about how these life-giving waters were actually divided up between India and Pakistan by the World Bank in the 1960 Indus Water Treaty. Even though it was technically an equal 3-to-3 split in the number of rivers, those western rivers given to Pakistan carry that massive 80% volume we just talked about. That leaves the eastern rivers carrying the remaining 20% of the volume to India.
Section 3. The mighty Ganga Basin. Stretching an incredible 2,510 kilometers long, the Ganga River is a monumental artery. It sustains a basin of over 1 million square kilometers. Just let that sink in for a second. More than 500 million people depend, directly or indirectly, on this single powerful drainage system every single day. Tracing the Ganga's actual path is super fascinating because it doesn't even start out being called the Ganga. It's born as the Bhagirathi, dripping from the freezing Gangotri Glacier, and only earns the title Ganga at Devprayag when it crashes into the Alaknanda. From there, it spills into the plains at Haridwar, meets its longest tributary, the Yamuna, at Prayagraj, and eventually splits at the Farakka Barrage in West Bengal. One branch becomes the Hooghly, and the other, the Padma, flows straight into Bangladesh to help build the largest delta in the world. Section 4. Brahmaputra, the eastern giant. The Brahmaputra is a beast. Over its 2,900-kilometer run, it actually changes identities completely. It starts way up in Tibet as the Yarlung Tengpo, flowing east. Then it hits the Himalayas, pulls off a spectacular U-turn through these impossibly deep gorges, and enters Arunachal Pradesh as the Dihang. By the time it hits the Assam plains, it finally becomes the Brahmaputra, widening out so much that it actually creates Majuli, the world's largest riverine island, before plunging down into Bangladesh where it becomes the Jamuna. Section 5. West-flowing peninsular rivers. Now here is a geographical anomaly that blows my mind. The Luni is an ephemeral river with a completely closed drainage system. It flows for 495 kilometers through some seriously arid terrain, getting more and more saline until it just evaporates. It completely disappears into the salty flats of the Run of Kutch. It literally never makes it to the ocean. These ancient west-flowing rivers have some serious geological muscle. Take the majestic Narmada, for instance. It doesn't flow through a typical valley. It fiercely carves its way right through a rift valley stuck between the Vindhya and Satpura mountain ranges. Over millennia, it has carved out spectacular natural wonders, plunging into waterfalls and cutting steep, dramatic gorges straight through solid marble rocks.
Of course, to prevent massive, catastrophic floods and to generate vital power, human engineering has stepped in to harness these rapid western flows. We've built monumental structures, like the famous Sardar Sarovar Dam and the Indra Sagar Dam on the Narmada, plus the Ukai Dam over on the Tapi River. These projects are absolutely essential for water supply and irrigation all across central and western India.
Section 6. East-flowing peninsular rivers.
Think about the sheer reach of the Godavari. Clocking in at 1,465 kilometers, it is the absolute longest river in the entire peninsula. It originates right near the Arabian Sea, over in the Western Ghats, but flows all the way across the Deccan Plateau to the east. Its incredible size and cultural importance have rightfully earned it the nickname Dakshin Ganga, or the Ganges of the South.
But then, we have a fascinating exception. Remember earlier when we said peninsular rivers are seasonal? Well, the sacred Kaveri completely defies those rules. It's the only peninsula river that acts like a perennial one, keeping up a steady flow all year long. Why? Because its basin acts like a giant geographical catcher's mitt. It gets perfectly filled up by the southwest monsoon in the summer, and then gets a second massive drenching from the northeast monsoon in the winter.
And just like in the West, these massive eastern rivers are working around the clock to power the South through some real engineering marvels. The Mahanadi River hosts the incredible Hirakud Dam in Odisha, which stretches an astonishing 26 kilometers. That makes it the longest dam in India. Further south, the historic Metter Dam tames the Kaveri, while the massive Nagarjuna Sagar on the Krishna River locks in water and energy for millions of people.
Now, having traced the spectacular journey of India's rivers, we've got to face a pretty stark reality before we wrap up this explainer. These ancient lifelines are under an unprecedented amount of stress. Just for some context on where we stand, back in 2012, India's usable water capacity was already facing severe strain from pollution and over-extraction. Fast forward to the projections for 2026, and the data points to a highly critical tipping point. We're looking at rapidly declining water quality and drastically reduced per capita capacity. How we manage, engineer, and ultimately respect these waterways over the next few years won't just decide the health of the rivers. It's quite literally going to determine the survival of 1 billion people. Thanks for joining me.